Namaskaram everybody and happy Deepavali. Bo invites you to the Gita for Yuva Series in which we talk about the Gita and have discussions about it. I would personally like to explore more into it and you can now also join it on this occasion. Namaskaram, welcome to BHO Yuva Sadhas, Gita for Yuva Series. Today we continue with chapter 9, Rajavidya Rajagufya Yoga, the yoga of royal knowledge and royal secret. So now Krishna furthermore explains, usually Arjuna is one opening the chapter, now Krishna is. I shall now impart to you, Arjuna, the essential secret of the greatest knowledge, as you are very attentive and eager to know more, which is quite obvious by Arjuna's attitude for the rest of the chapters. The theoretical knowledge of truth and the technique of its application, basically the path of knowledge will make you fit for the realization, me in you. The implication of the spiritual science is profound. We're going back to the last few chapters. He calls the self-realization, the path to this, as a spiritual science. It's a science of its own, and it is the greatest subjective knowledge one can ever possess about oneself. One can put this entirely into practice and gain self-perception, become the self itself. Because when you say that all the souls are connected into one Atman, it's not like God is in a part of all of us. In a way, it's kind of saying that all of us basically consists of, or I should say, God basically consists of all of us, is what it is. On the contrary, those who do not have faith and conviction in this truth of knowledge and therefore do not undertake a pilgrimage or a sacrifice to the self, fritter away their physical strength, mental powers, and intellectual capacities, and they start to go after material pleasures. The result for them is unending rounds of birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. They wander farther and farther away from the shrine of that self. So, if you think about it, everybody living right now has been somewhat ignorant, or like they have something, I guess. Then he says, I told you, Arjuna, that I am subtler than the subtlest. In philosophy, the subtlety of a thing is measured by its pervasiveness. He says, since I am subtler than the subtlest, I am indeed all pervasive. There is nothing in the universe which is not pervaded by me, but I do not identify myself specifically with anything, with the joys and sorrows or other changings or conditionings. Just if you ponder deeply over this fact, you will understand that I do not have any sort of attachment to this infinite, this manifested universe. Is this indifference, this dispassion, I can keep due to my yoga sakti. It says the finite universe with this multiplicity of forms is as false and unreal as a dream. This is where Maya comes in again. So, in the past few chapters, and you won't just see this in the Bhagavad Gita, you'll see it in a lot of different places, even in Hindu philosophy and ancient writings, they'll talk about Maya. Maya, well, if you ever watched the movie Matrix, this is an example. If you watch the movie Matrix, and it's a very famous one, how the real world is fake, or the world that we're living in is fake, and it's all just programmed into a computer, and then the real world is completely something entirely different. This is kind of what it is. It's like all these, and he's not just referring to the illusions and the actual like luxury material objects. He's saying literally everything, including the body itself, is just an illusion, like a VR headset that you're looking into. If you take off the VR headset, it's going to be completely different. Okay, that's where your self-realization actually comes in. That's a world of self-realization. So, he says, Arjuna says, what is the lot of the beings who to the gross intellect seem to exist and are said to be created by the Creator at the dawn of his day and dissolved at the approach of his night. So this is the same thing we talked about in the last chapter, how Brahma creates everything one day, destroys at the end of that day. That day for him, right, is actually a Chaturyuga, a celestial Chaturyuga, which like doubles its length basically. He says, so Krishna says, these beings, strictly speaking, are neither created by a creator, different from me, nor destroyed by a destroyer other than me. The creation, the dissolution, the unending cycle of births and deaths are my play only. But this play itself is not, in fact, played by me, as I am indifferent and untouched by it, right? So no vasana is left behind upon me, meaning he does not have any affection to it. That means he does not have any vasana that affects his next life. My play itself is but an apparent experience. Arjuna says, Prakriti, the Lord's lower nature, I can accept it, but I cannot understand it. Please explain a little further what this lower nature is. So, in the past few chapters, Krishna talked about basically the lower nature and the higher nature, para prakriti and apara prakriti. But apara prakriti is the lower nature. He says, Prakriti, my lower nature, is powerless by itself, but I, the Purusha, which is the Brahman, the eternal self, lend my power to her, and then from her it is produced the world of living beings and inert objects. So I preside over this process, right? I look over it, but do not take any active part in it at all. I remain as pure and untainted after the work as I was ever before it. I am immaculate always. Meaning, it's like a CEO position, right? An actual CEO will only be managing the highest of the highest affairs, like meetings with boards of directors or meetings with huge companies and deals and stuff like that, right? We can keep that right now. It's a para prakriti, the true nature, the higher nature, and then the lower nature is like water, earth, all these material things, right? And that is all done by the CFO or any employees under which are working. So although he presides over it basically, right? He does not take any work in that actual thing. He says, when I explained to you about my lower and higher nature, I told you that men of imperfect knowledge get confused between the manifested me and the unmanifested me. He says, I come down in my form at my free will to bless the generation, if there's some kind of bad things that are happening in the earth, he will take a form. But it is only produced by my Maya. Therefore, that form should not be mistaken for the real me. So basically, what he's saying is, we'll go back to the VR headset thing. Okay, like let's say like the real world. Well, that is that self-realization thing, right? The spirit realm, basically, right? You put a VR headset. That's your Maya. Okay, it's like a 3D world around you, right? It's not real. And then you can say Krishna is like the actual god, let's say like the owner of that VR, if you're playing a game, for example, in that VR headset, like that owner of that small shop, for instance, he's gonna come out and help you a little bit, right? He'll be seen in that VR. That is like him coming down. He's like coming from that, like the form that you cannot see into a form that you can see. Basically, he's like trying to explain it. It's like a form of communication. Basically, he's trying to explain it to people in a way without like a direct saying like, oh, this is the self. But he's like, hey, they have to work towards it, of course. But he's coming in a form that they can understand. Basically, in a Maya form. He says, entertaining meaningless hopes, performing useless actions, and possessing imperfect knowledge, the ignorant men get nowhere near me. While the wise, knowing the common underlying principle in everything to be the Lord, worship me with matchless devotion. Certainly, they do come to me in their full evolutionary maturity. So, then again, right? He explains now when he manifests himself. The word manifests itself, right? That slokam is yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttana madharmasya tadatmanam shajan yaham, which is whenever there's decay of righteousness, O Bharata, and rise of unrighteousness, then I manifest myself, right? Um, let's pretend you're in a VR headset, okay? Pretend like a guy who is Krishna, right? If he comes into your view, he will be seen in that VR headset, okay? But if he goes out, he will not be seen, okay? Let's say that there's some trouble going on, like you're having problem like fighting your enemies in that VR headset, right? And he has to come help. He will step into that form, and he will try to get rid of that evil. So like uh I'll give a better example. Let me see. Okay. One example is if you're putting like a bottle or something, or a glass of milk or something at the edge of a table, like right here, for instance, right? And let's say like that is like a quality goodness kind of, right? Stay there, it starts to fall a little bit, and over time over time will slowly move a little bit, and it will fall. Okay, he's the one who catches it and puts it back up every time it does it. The good and wise men sing my glory silently and incessantly, all through their activities and expressions in life. Resisting temptations courageously, they live an austere and disciplined life, always rejecting the wrong and ever accepting only that which is the right. It's kind of like a the VR headset is like in a escape room, for example, right? The I think of the wise as the people who are trying to solve the problems. The ignorant are the one who is admiring the artwork and not actually doing anything. They're saying like, go, just do it, right? The wise are the ones who will get across a VR headset. They're the ones that will escape that escape room in that Maya. They're the ones that will eventually free themselves. The ignorant will get stuck in that escape room, okay? And they'll come back again and again and again to that escape room to try it over and over again. That is the rebirths, and still to no avail. There are those who see me as as one, literally the one, two, the one, yet as distinct, and three, as the manifold. Seeming always the one sole, subtle, essential principle underlying in all, but they also realize that I am distinct from all, and through one I appear to be many. So again, as I said, we shouldn't think of God as like a social structure, like this umbrella, for instance. That's right here before me. I shouldn't say like God is at the top and everybody else is at this bottom. It's not like that. You should think it of more as this table is the God. If this is the umbrella, everything in the umbrella is part of the table. Meaning everything here is part of that God. I appear as meant to the gross intellect. I am the sacrifice and the sacrificial materials, the fire in which the sacrifices are put. I am the mantra, the sacred hymn which the divine is invoked. In short, there's nothing other than me. Everything that exists is basically God, is what he's saying. There is nothing that is not God. Everything from even like the dark void to even the most complex brains, everything is everything together basically consists of that true Atman. It basically says, I'm the ultimate destination, right? All come to me, all basically come to me ultimately, okay? Whether ignorant or not ignorant, okay? Whether ignorant or wise, right? When they die, they will eventually get sent back again, they lose their memory. But at the end, the very end, the end of Brahman's day. Well, as I said before, the day of Brahman is nothing more than the one whole celestial Chatur Yuga, which for us would be more than 50,000 or 12,000 years. He basically says that, yeah, I'm the ultimate destination. I am the ruler and the witness of all, a refuge of the distressed and the friend of the lonely, the origin as well as the end. This is just examples of what he actually is, but as he already said, he is literally everything. He says, there are the Vaidika scholars who worship me by performing sacrifices as prescribed in the Vedas, and they ask for the pleasures of heaven. There are like I'll tell you a good example of this, right? Let's say you're eating too much junk food, for example, right? And you get sick, okay? You can take medicine, okay? Or I guess what better one is, you get a cold. okay, and you eat too much candy, you get very sick by both of them, right? The prescribed the what the what the doctor prescribes to you is some kind of medicine to heal you, right? That is the prescribing the yajna, right? Prescribing the rituals. They say like, if you do this, you'll heal. If you do this, you'll reset spirit realm, right? But that itself is not just going to automatically help, right? You have to do something. You have to stop using that snacks itself, right? That is a mental thing also. That's um, you have to stop using the snack. Maybe sit near fireplace or something like that. That can also help a lot. That's basically what he's saying. Compared here is, there are Vaidika scholars who worship me by performing sacrifices as prescribed in the Vedas and ask for the pleasures of the heaven. I fulfill their desires. He says, okay, if you take the medicine, yeah, eventually you'll heal. They enjoy the divine pleasures in the heavens for a time, according to their merit, and when the merit gets exhausted by enjoyment, they are born again in the mortal world. This means that if you take the medicine, okay, that means you're not sick now, you're fine. But then you start eating candy again, so like, okay, I won't get sick anymore, and then you get sick again. Thing is, basically he says when they're exhausted by enjoyment, he says when his good deeds are actually forgotten when he enjoys too much once again. They are born again in the mortal world. These elaborate sacrificial rituals, because they are motivated by the desire to enjoy those ethical pleasures, right? Because many slokas are just about how, like, going to heaven. They're just thinking about going to heaven, going to heaven, going to heaven. That is still prompted by desire. They fail to bring about the final release from the bondage of worldly existence, because uh, thinking about going to heaven itself is like, oh, I would really want to go to self realization is breaking the, it's literally it's very hypocritic. Basically, it's the opposite of what you want, if you want what you want to be doing, right? You don't want any of that desire. It is, even those who worship other deities worship me only, but in an indirect way, from the ultimate recipient of all beings offered to other gods. So basically he's saying like a lot of these gods that you see, okay, there are many different gods in Hinduism. I probably hundreds at least. There are different paths that you can take to reach that ultimate Purusha. Doesn't matter what one you take. Each one you take will lead you to a different path of life, different ways, a different experience. But ultimately, that will all lead you to that Purusha. Arjuna, I must warn you here, he says. You should not think that costly materials or elaborate rites, as prescribed in the Vedas, are required from my worship. He says, what you offer is insignificant to me. He says, I do not even look at what is offered to me. Is the most important part is with what intention, purity of motive. It doesn't, because the god he won't look at, say, like, okay, I'm looking down at earth, okay, let me take my magnifying glass. I can see there's a yajna happening in Delhi, let me see what's happening. Oh good, they're sacrificing a lot of stuff, guaranteed heaven. It's not like that. They'll be like, okay, let me take my other magnifying glass. Okay, yes. I see their true motive. Seems like they're doing this for a very good reason. Okay, let's grant them heaven, or guarantee the heaven, or they can just say like, oh, the usual Maya stuff. Okay, no, do 100 more yogas and maybe. um, well, obviously it's not that simple, but he says basically it's like it's a motive that counts, not what you give. He says, I don't. So yeah, he doesn't even look what's offered to him. The most important part is with what intention, purity of motive you offer to me. Fruit or flower, leaf or water, right? All of that can be the symbols of your intention. But when offered with faith and the right attitude, I accept it with great pleasure. He doesn't care what you give. Okay, you can give something as like a small coin, like a small wooden coin even, or something as like a big huge mansion that costed maybe over $1 billion, right? He's like, okay, with what intention did you do it though? Like, he doesn't care about all that. That's why he also says that all these elaborate rituals are, and all these things aren't really expensive, things aren't really needed. Okay, even a Shudra who's probably very poor and can't like afford a yajna or something like that, he can still pray to God, even if he offers like, some crops that he farmed himself, or uh, anything. He doesn't even have to offer anything, but with that right motive, even he will go to heaven. So therefore, consider your work as worship, and your food as an oblation to me. Offer gifts in my name, practice penance for me. Nay, whatever you do, consider it as an offering unto me. Remember me constantly all through your activities. Yes, when you thus consider me as the agent of all your activities, you are freed from that vasana bondage caused by them, that Maya illusion. You get freed from that Maya. So he says, thus by the renunciation of all of egocentric activities, and by yoga, non-attachment to the anxieties for the fruits, meaning constant remembrance of the Lord, which is but a natural sequence of sannyasa, you will ultimately finally reach me. He says, I am partial to none, I hate none, I have no differences against any. But those who worship me constantly, remembering me, come to reside in me. Therefore, I too come to reside in them. It's not like it depends on the intention they're doing. Like it doesn't have to be uh, like even a villain like who maybe fought against Krishna or Vishnu, right? If they can reform properly, they can also get to that heaven. So he's not he loves none or he hates none. There could be a villain who is taking like a different path, maybe to Shiva, but for some reason he hates Vishnu, right? He could keep on fighting Vishnu, insulting him, right? But he would still since he's going to that Shiva path, he would still get to that ultimate heaven. He says, I hate none. So he's saying that okay, he's still trying to go to that truth. So he's still having these unselfish things and all that. My devotee, he says, he be a Vaishya, Shudra, man or woman, shall never come to suffer. Ever, if it's his devotee. When even sinners can attain salvation by constantly remembering me, why not the virtuous and the moral man? He says, so Arjuna, always remember me. Ever remain my devotee. Sacrifice to me, identify yourself with me, and you will know nothing but peace and joy in life. That's what he's saying. And that's the end of chapter 9. Join us later in chapter 10, which is Vibhuti Yoga, the yoga of divine glories. So I'm now going to move on to chapter 10, which is Vibhuti Yoga, the yoga of divine glories. So Krishna says that this Arjuna, even like the gods and the great sages, they do not correctly and understand my greatness. Though I am their cause and all that, I am birthless and beginningless. I am the sole lord of the whole universe. Any mortal who knows this truth basically sheds all his sins. That's what he's saying. He says intellect, wisdom, non-delusion, forgiveness, truth, self-restraint, all that, um, which are experienced by beings, spring from me alone. I'm the one who created them. The four Manus, the progenitors of the human race itself, right? And the seven great sages, Sapta Rishis, are created by my willpower only, right? One who knows this great glory of mine is a true yogi. So that's what the self-realization is you have to first realize that. As the wise joyfully and with intense knowledge, they kind of worship me, is what he's saying. Knowing me to be the sources of everything and sources of all that. They know that everything evolves from me alone, right? Entertaining the one idea that I am from everything that's the kind of thing that they worship. All their energy are diverted towards the God self. They basically sing his glories, and they take delight in talking about me. He says, yes, they revel in me. The bliss realized by living in and for the Lord has no comparison whatsoever. No, not just like immaterial, not something, not just material, but immaterial also. There is no greater height to that. So again, Krishna says that these wise men, right, realizing self-realization, is the highest level, not just like compared to material, but also immaterially, in the mental state also is still the highest. He says, basically, I bless such wise men with the Buddhi Yoga, a deeply penetrating and pure intellectual faculty, which basically like comprehends through meditation that real nature of that self. that Buddhi Yoga is what he bestows upon those wise men. And Arjuna says, okay, my lord, Narada, Vyasa, and other philosophers and sages, right, of old have described you in the same terms, right? And now you too confirm their teachings. I believe fully that you are the Supreme Spirit, Lord, the Infinite Paramatman. So now finally, Arjuna is trying to acknowledge it. He says again now, he continues, you told me earlier that even the gods and the great sages do not correctly comprehend you in all their glory. There's no use asking them to teach me the truth about you, right? He's not directly saying it. Since you're the only one who knows you, you are the only teacher who can teach me about yourself and your greatness and whatever that is. You must tell me, therefore, all your glories which pervade the worlds. Tell me also, how am I to meditate so that I may come to know you? In which aspect or form should I contemplate upon you realize? So he is talking specifically how do I come to that level? So Krishna says, he says, in which aspect or form should I contemplate upon you to realize you in your full glory? Tell me about all your yoga powers and your glory. So it's now him to say all his accomplishments, and then also just tell him like how to get into that meditative form. So Krishna says, yes, since there is no end to the list of my glories, I can only indicate to you the most prominent ones among them all. He says, briefly, I am the divine life, spark in all beings, and the creator, protector, and destroyer of all beings. He says, that's me. He just very simply says, that's me. As I am Vishnu among the 12 Adityas, the sun among luminaries, Marichi among the merits, the moon among the stars. He goes on to he goes to list a lot. Then he continues to say like the king of the dead forefathers among the Pitters, Yama, god of death, basically all the stuff. Then he finally just says, I am the everlasting time, the dispenser of all the fruits of actions. I'm the all-devouring death of the created beings, and the source of all those who are yet to be created. So this is where we get like multiple elements of what it is. When you see like Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, right? Those are the main three, the main trinity. And of course there are other gods as well, right? He's saying that they are all just different paths to go into, well, what is the Brahman? And Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma, as you see, the creator, destructor, preserver, that's all these elements of the one true Brahman. You can also, it's also like paths. You can choose like a purely Shaivite way or a purely Vaishnavite way. He says, I am fame, prosperity, speech, memory, intelligence, firmness, and forgiveness among the feminine qualities. I am the Brihatsama among the sacred hymns. So, what Brihatsama is the Vaidika hymns, which is composed to the Brihati meter. It's very specific. The Gayatri among meters, Margasira month among the 12 months, and Vasanta spring seasons. He goes on to like list everything. He says basically, I am the gambling of the deceitful, splendor of the splendid. He says, I am Krishna among the Yadavas, though, right? I'm Krishna among the Yadavas, Arjuna among the Pandavas, Vyasa among the recluses, Shukra among the wisest and most royal. He's basically saying that in Arjuna, literally in Arjuna, who's questioning that that self-reality and all that the self-realization is literally in him still. That's he's doing that more. So finally, after listing everything, he's saying, remember what I have given you is not only an exhaustive list of my marvelous glories, but only a brief indication of a few of them. And I only said like a few of them. There's like literally 2 whole pages on this. Just listing his accomplishments, and that itself is only a small hint. And even in that, he said those were the only most prominent ones. So apparently, he does have a lot of accomplishments. He says, is there any need for you to give more details? You know enough when you know that my entire universe is supported by part of my own self. He's saying. That's the end of chapter 10. Continue. We'll continue in chapter 11, which is Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga, the yoga of vision and the divine cosmic form.